Thank you, Chair, and thank you, officers, for just answering again all the questions you already asked in the bill inquiry on this matter on Friday. Moving on to the 5-country ministerial meeting, where was that held this year?
Senator, that was in... the meeting between the 5 ministers was held virtually, and I'll get Ms Sharp to come and help me with that, and Mr Robinson.
Thank you. As you're coming to the table, Ms Sharp, where was it supposed to be held?
So, Senator, the meeting had been scheduled to be held in Sydney.
On what date?
I'm sure Mr Robinson can help us with the date.
Thank you, Senator. James Robinson, First Assistant Secretary, Strategic Policy Division.
Could you just lean a bit closer to the microphone? It's a bit hard to hear.
Excuse me, sorry.
You're
James Robinson, First Assistant Secretary, Strategic Policy Division.
And what were the dates it was supposed to be held in Sydney?
It was originally scheduled to be held on the 3rd to the 5th of September.
The 3rd to the 5th of September. And when was it held virtually?
On the 25th of September.
Right. How long has it been since Australia hosted in person one of these meetings?
The chairing of the 5-country ministerial rotates annually, so it would have been 4 years ago. We would have been originally scheduled to host.
I think it was, in fact, 2018. I think it was 6 years ago. I believe we held it on the Gold Coast then. How many people in Home Affairs were working on hosting this meeting?
I'd have to take the specifics on notice.
How big's your team?
I'd also have to take that on notice. There's a specific team that was responsible for the organisation, but we work across the entirety of Home Affairs to pull it together because it covers a range of different thematic leads.
So you don't know how many people were working on it?
It's varied over the course of the planning.
Was it 1 or 2? Was it half a dozen? Was it a dozen? Ballpark?
I think ballpark around about 7.
About 7 people were working on this. And how long have they been working on hosting this meeting?
So as it transitions from year to year, we adopted the hosting of it probably at the beginning of the year when we received it, I think, from our New Zealand colleagues.
Roughly 7 Home Affairs departmental officials were working for a year on hosting this meeting in Sydney.
That's correct.
Yep. Why didn't it proceed in Sydney on the scheduled date?
Roughly half the ministers were unavailable to travel to Australia due to a range of different factors.
So, Senator, you recall that there was a change of government in the UK not long before that, and very shortly before the meeting was scheduled to be held, there was significant civil unrest in England. And so what we did was essentially repurpose the arrangements that had been put in place, and senior officials met, and so the agenda was prosecuted to the extent it could be by senior officials in Sydney, and then fed into the ministers when they had their online meeting a little later that year. So we did everything we could to take advantage of all the preparatory work that had been done.
When was the decision made to cancel the in-person meeting of the ministers?
It was somewhere between a week, 2 weeks before the meeting.
And I would also just add that the decision wasn't to cancel it, it was just to defer it.
Sure. Well, the in-person meeting was obviously cancelled, right? Sure. So presumably people's flights had to be cancelled and they were no longer travelling. So there weren't any other ministers or officials able to represent the ministers who couldn't be there?
Senator, those options were explored. I think our judgment was that the meetings are significantly enhanced by having the senior ministers around the table, and that if we could achieve that virtually, then that was the best outcome.
Is there a more important annual meeting with our international counterparts for the Minister for Home Affairs than this one?
Senator, I'd have to look at the range of meetings that the Minister participates in. That certainly is a very important meeting, but I should emphasise that the advice about transitioning from an in-person meeting to a virtual meeting with the principals was mine.
Okay. You said that about half of the ministers were not available, given that there are 5. Was it 2 or 3 who were not available?
It was 2 of the... So it was
in addition to the UK, who else was unavailable?
The US Senator.
Right. The US is a big system. They've got a lot of touch points on issues like this. They weren't able to send a different person?
Senator, they were able to send a different person, but and absolutely grateful to them for looking into their system and identifying someone. Again, it was my judgment that the level of official who was able to travel meant that it was more effective to have Minister meet with his counterpart.
So obviously the US was happy for the meeting to proceed and they were offered to send someone else instead of presumably Secretary Mayorkas. So really it was only the United Kingdom that couldn't send a relevant minister?
The United Kingdom could also have sent a substitute minister, Senator.
So they offered to send a substitute minister as well?
They did, Senator.
Right. So why could the meeting have not proceeded with the substitute ministers in person?
It could have, Senator. As I said, it was my judgment call and my advice to Minister Burke that the most effective mechanism for him to progress the very significant issues discussed at that meeting was to meet with the principals who had the most influence and impact in their systems.
Mm-hmm. So you don't have the exact date that the decision was made to cancel the meeting?
I'm sure we can find that for you, Senator.
Yep. Like now? Can we find that now? Surely that's not that hard.
I can find that, Senator.
Thank you. And particularly when the Canadian and New Zealand ministers were told, given that they were able to attend and intended to come, are there any limitations in holding these meetings by video conference?
No, Senator. We were able to use a classified system, so the discussions were free-ranging and at an appropriate level.
So it was a TS video conference?
I'll have to check the level of the conference, Senator. I just know that it was classified.
And you're confident that had that meeting been in Australia, would the ministers have been meeting in a skiff?
Senator, there were arrangements made to hold different parts of the meeting in different locations.
Were any elements of the meeting planned to be held in a skiff?
And one element of the meeting would have been in the skiff.
Okay. So a TS video conference is not as secure as meeting in a skiff, is it?
So Senator, there were no issues that ministers felt unable to discuss via...
That wasn't my question. My question was, a TS video conference is not as secure as meeting in a skiff, is it?
Senator, I'd have to seek advice from my physical security folks on that.
We wouldn't go to the expense of tens of millions of dollars of building skiffs all around the world and in Australia if they were equally secure as a video conference, would we?
Sorry, Senator. So top secret systems are held within a secure compartmented information facility, and they're across both Australia and 5 other countries.
Okay, so was this meeting held in a skiff, the video conference?
Our meeting was held at official, virtually.
Official, right, so it's not classified. Not even secret.
Sorry, Senator, I had thought it was held at a secret level.
That was the impression I got from your answer. Mr Robinson's shaking his head that Hansard won't pick it up, so I'll put it on the record.
The meeting was held at official.
Right.
I'm sorry, Senator, I was mistaken.
So, Ms Foster, clearly the ministers could not have discussed really anything of any sensitivity at official levels.
So, Senator, my advice remains that ministers had an open and frank discussion and none of them indicated any constraint.
Well, why then, when it was planned to be in person, did you plan to hold some of the meetings in a skiff if everything they needed to be discussed could be discussed at an official level on a video conference?
So, Senator, some of the activities that we had planned for the face-to-face meeting involved briefings rather than being the direct subject of the discussions.
So presumably those briefings didn't take place?
Not if they were at a classified level, Senator.
No, not if they're only at official.
That's correct, Senator.
Just in plain terms, can someone explain what the official level of classification is?
Basically, it's able to be shared easily over open lines of communication.
So it's the least sensitive form of communication, right?
I think unofficial is actually technically the least
Good
form.
point. Good point. The second least. Right. So we're at the bottom of the tree in terms of sensitivity. You couldn't discuss any classified information at that level, could you?
You can convey a range of different things in veiled comments, and we rely a lot on...
Sorry, Mr.
veiled
Robinson,
terms?
In veiled comments, right. So we're going to meet officially, which is not secure, and we're in veiled terms going to allude to classified information? Is that your advice to the Minister about how to protect classified information of the Australian Government?
No, it's not, but we also rely on a range of other conversations taking place concurrently between
Right, so let's
bureaucracies.
do a thought exercise. Tell me how you'd share a classified piece of information with me in a veiled way that would be secure.
Senator, I think what Mr Robinson was trying to express was that we had had significant discussions amongst officials at more highly classified levels, which meant that ministers could conduct what was essentially a policy rather than an operations-based discussion at official level.
Okay, what classified information was referred to in a veiled way in this meeting?
So, Senator, the other thing that we often do is that we rely on exchange of previous pieces of information that are exchanged between our bureaucracies as well. So we're all operating on a
Thank you.
common
That doesn't answer
understanding.
my question, though. What classified information was referred to in a veiled way at this insecure video conference meeting?
Senator, like I was trying to express, alluding to classified pieces of information at an official level is a common practice.
Right. Were you in the meeting?
I was.
Yeah. Did you take notes?
I did.
Are there minutes?
Yes.
Okay. So what classified information was referred to in this meeting?
I'd have to take that on notice, but like I said, I don't think that we communicated any classified information in the meeting itself.
Right. We just
And
alluded to it.
Senator, as well, I have that information about when it was officially cancelled.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think advice was formally provided to partners on the 20th of August.
The 20th of August. Okay. I'm not filled with confidence that either this meeting met its intended objectives, given that the secure conversations couldn't take place, or that indeed that ministers were given good advice about how to conduct a meeting internationally, referring to classified information on an insecure channel.
So, Senator, I think what Mr Robinson was trying to express, and correct me, Mr Robinson, if I'm putting words in your mouth, is that when the context is known and understood, it's possible to have a conversation without revealing any classified information.
Well, I hope anyone who was listening in on the meeting, who wasn't invited to participate in the meeting, as we know some of our friends seek to do, didn't understand the context either and couldn't pick up the inferences that were shared on that call. So is it still your evidence, Ms Foster, that this meeting fulfilled all of the objectives of a 5-country ministerial meeting would, had it been held in purpose, that there was in person, there was no difference?
Senator, I don't believe my evidence was that there was no difference. What I said was I thought that it was more important that ministers met as principals to come to a shared understanding of challenges and issues, if that had to be done virtually, than having representative ministers meet face to face.
I know we'll be about to go to the lunch break and we're short for time. So just on notice, could you provide to me where in the PSPF it says it is okay to refer to classified material in non-classified settings?
So, Senator, I think I corrected that point. No classified information was passed in the meeting.
Right. So it's not in the PSPF that you can refer to classified material in non-classified environments?
I'm sure the PSPF wouldn't say that, Senator, but
I would hope not.
That's not what happened.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.